All right, welcome to the Truth and Leadership Academy, everybody. Thanks for coming. So thanks, Carrie, for your presentation on respect. We're going to kind of continue this theme just a little bit. And today I want to talk about, the title is Think Win-Win. So when you think about life, you think about there are really just millions of relationships going on. We meet people, our worlds collide, and something happens. We either gain from that relationship or we're deterred from that relationship. We either make a positive difference or a negative difference. They either make a positive difference on you or a negative, difference on you. So every relationship we come across, whether it's with an employee, with a spouse or a family member or a friend or neighbor or a customer, it's always going to have either a positive or a negative effect, right? I suppose you can have a neutral effect to some degree, but with any depth of the relationship, it's always going to have either a winning element or a losing element. Okay, makes sense? Anybody ever been involved in a relationship that had a losing element to it? Sure, and winning element to it, right? Okay, so we're talking about pursuing win-win relationships, because that's really, really important. That's really what we want in all of our relationships, isn't it? Hopefully. We want to have a win-win. We want to be able to win because we don't want to lose. We don't want to go into anything and lose. That doesn't sound right. And we don't want the other person to lose, or do we? Sometimes we're fine with other people losing. Sometimes we're fine with being the taker when other person loses. Sometimes we're okay with that. So we're going to explore why that is. Or sometimes we're okay with losing if somebody else can win. We're okay with that sometimes too. We're going to explore that and figure out, why do we think this way and what's a healthier way to think? All right, so we'll get started here. I'm basing this off of a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he's a great author, by the way. And that's one of the cornerstone books that goes right along with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a must-read for anybody that wants to grow personally and in their leadership. So I would highly recommend that. But so he talks about the win-win principle. And here's how that works. Sorry, I got to start my slide here. Okay. He talks about the 6 paradigms of human interaction. That means when you come into an interaction with another person, there's really only six paradigms that you could fall into here. The first one is win-win, and this is what we're going to talk about today, how we want to pursue win-win relationships. The second is win-lose. That means I win at your expense, right? The next would be lose-win. I'm willing to lose as long as you can prosper. Okay. The next one would be lose-lose. I lose and you lose. Neither one of us win. The next one would be I win. I don't care if you lose or not, but I need to win. And then the last one would be win-win or no deal. So we're going to explore all of these, and hopefully it'll give you a better big picture on what's going on when you have an interaction with other people, and to see the big picture and to see how your business works based on all of these individual relationships and how that affects the overall culture of your workplace. All right, so we'll get going here. So let's look at this. Win-win relationships. Win-win is a frame of mind and a heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. That sounds ideal, doesn't it? To seek out a win-win relationship so that our mind and our hearts constantly seek that. That sounds great. That's what we would like to do all of the time. Does that happen? No, it doesn't always happen. And I'll say, we'll explore this a little bit more. You'll see what I'm saying. And sometimes that can't always happen. Sometimes that's not always the option either. But that's what we want to put in the middle of the bullseye right now for us to look at as an ideal perspective of how we should think and how we should go into each relationship. Right? Okay? Does that make sense? Win-win is based on a paradigm that there's plenty for everybody, that one person's success is not achieved at the expense or exclusion of the success of others. So we've talked about this in our training in the past, just the difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundant mindset. A scarcity mindset says that there's a limited amount of resources out there, and whoever can gobble up the bigger share is the winner. But the abundant mindset says there's plenty out there, and we can all share, and we can all have our enough, and we can all get what we need if we just go out and find it. Have you ever seen those two differences? You ever seen that? Where people think, if somebody else wins, I have to lose. If somebody else is making more money than me, I'm the loser, they're the winner.
That's the game the politicians play.
Yep, all the time.
They tell you that someone else has a lot and you don't, and it's because you don't have that much.
Yep. Win-win is a belief in the third alternative. So not me winning or you winning, or it's not your way or my way. It's a better way and a higher way. Okay? So think of it in the terms of motives. Where do our motives come from? I want what's best for me. Or I want what's best for you. Or this third alternative would be, I want what's best for both of us and for everyone else around. That's a healthier perspective for us to adopt in the workplace, in the family, in the community, everywhere. That's a healthier perspective to adopt than just simply looking at the world through my own binoculars, filtering everything through my needs. Make sense? Or just the opposite, filtering everything through someone else's needs, maybe at your own detriment. All right, so that's win-win. Let's keep moving. Win-lose. So a win-lose paradigm would be, the win-lose is the paradigm of the race to Bermuda. That's one thing that it's called. If I win, you lose. So if I win, you lose. Think about competition. How many people can win? How many teams can win the Super Bowl?
Apparently not the Vikings.
Just one.
Yeah.
Just one team can win. So there has to be somebody else that loses. And so sports is not a great analogy for win-win, is it? Now, in the context of a team, it is. If we all work well as a team, we can win. And so within the context of a team, you get the win-win. I do my part, you do your part, together we'll do our part, and we can win, right? And so sports can be either way. It can be a win-win or a win-lose, depending on how you look at it. Win-lose is the authoritarian approach. I get my way, you don't get yours. Think about a boss, and you know how much we like that term boss in our training here. Think about a person that relies on their authority to get things done. You know, I might look at you and say, do it, because I said so. Now, is that a win-win? No, that's a me win, you lose. Do it. I'm willing to win even though you're going to lose. You're not going to get to do what you want. You don't get to go home on time because I want you to stay later. I win, you lose. Okay? When you have authority, you can make people do stuff for a time, right? Ever been in that situation where you've lost? You've lost because somebody else has more authority over you? Anybody?
Think about where he just came from. You have to close and then open.
Right. Yep.
You lose, I win.
So the win-lose category here. So people that fall into the win-lose that really are more interested in them winning, even if it means other people losing. People that fall into that category. What would you say? How would you describe people like that? What are some attributes to their personality or the character?
Arrogant.
Maybe a little selfish.
I was going to say self-centered.
Yeah. Maybe a little insecure because they need to use their authority because they don't have the respect built up, or they don't have the the credibility built up.
I usually see those two things together. Usually if you find someone's very selfish, it's because they're very insecure.
Yep. See, most people have been deeply scripted into the win-lose mentality since birth. Think about it. When you are young, really young, your parents win every time, and you lose. They tell you to do something, and you have to do it. You don't get a vote when you're 3, right? And so you grow up under this, and that's not necessarily wrong. A 3-year-old should not be able to make their own decisions and be able to win as often. Sometimes the parents just have to direct
They
what's
actually
going to
win
happen.
through losing, they just don't realize it.
Right, yeah, no
You
doubt.
can't play with a knife.
But we do have that scripted. I mean, how many people grew up just with the idea, maybe even before you even got a job, with the idea that when you do get a job, you're going to have to just do what the boss says? That's how we think, isn't it? We grow up that way. You do what your teacher tells you to do. Your teacher gives you homework, and we don't, when we're in 4th grade and our teacher gives us math homework, we don't think, wait a minute, this is not a win-win. Although it really is. Sometimes it is a win-win, but it just doesn't feel like it. It just doesn't feel like doing all this homework doesn't feel like a win. But you grow up and you're smarter because of it, and so you do actually win through it. So sometimes win-lose isn't really a win-lose. It just feels like it at the time. So sometimes a leader has to make a decision that is in the best interest of the company or majority at the expense of an individual. How many in this room have fired somebody before? Okay. How many have really enjoyed that?
Only once.
Yeah, I have to admit I've enjoyed it a couple times.
Yeah.
How many people believe that the other person enjoyed it? The other person doesn't usually enjoy it, right? But sometimes you have a win-lose that's necessary, right? You have to win and they have to lose because by them winning, more people lose. If you've ever had a turkey in your store that's begging to be terminated and they're causing problems, they're causing divisiveness, and you have to terminate them, if you don't, many other people lose.
Yeah, rotten turkey spills the whole refrigerator full of them.
Yeah, no doubt. And so sometimes a win-lose is necessary, but it's not something that we want to seek. If we could have avoided it to begin with a win-win, then that's great. But sometimes people will let you down and they don't want you to win. They don't care if you win as long as they win. A lot of people would rather just get paid and not have to work. In their eyes, they're winning and they don't care if you win. But they're winning. I'm getting my money and I don't care if they get their side or not. So do you see how it's kind of it's a teeter-totter? How there has to be win-win, and if there's not, if somebody drops the ball, it's not long before both lose, right? Okay, so that's a win-lose. So win-lose is basically taking the power position and being okay with the other person losing. That's a win-lose. Let's look at the opposite, a lose-win situation. I lose, you win. Go ahead, have your way with me. Anybody seen that? Someone who just kind of gives up and says, well, it's just going to happen anyway. I always get the short end of the stick, so you might as well just take my wallet and leave. I'm not going to fight for it, whatever. So I lose, you win. People who think lose-win are usually quick to please or appease. They seek strength from popularity or acceptance. We call these people pleasers. A lot of times a lose-win person is a people pleaser. It's like, no, you go ahead, you do this. And they can find it hard to confront people. They can find it hard to stand up for themselves. A lot of times they'll take the beating themselves. They'll maybe go into passive-aggressive mode and they won't stand up for their own rights or whatever, and people will maybe take advantage of them. So they're okay with losing as long as somebody else wins. Or maybe it's out of love too. Parents sometimes that will take the brunt for their children, and they'll always put their children's needs first, maybe to an aggressive extent. They'll lose while their kids can win. And so that could be something too. Lose-win means being the nice guy, even if nice guys finish last. And sometimes people with a lose-win mentality, they think that they're doing the right thing. They think by accepting a loss on themselves and giving to others, they're just being generous and giving. But what's the problem with that idea? They're devaluing themselves, right? If somebody else were to value themselves higher and you less, that's not good. So why would we do that to ourselves? Why would we do that to ourselves? Why would we make ourselves the martyr for someone else? Because that's not sustainable either. Nobody can survive. It's not sustainable. You can't survive. Your self-esteem can't survive. After a while, after you give and give and give and you make yourself the doormat, after a while, your mental health can't handle that, and something flips and you change. And so it's really common for a person that has a lose-win perspective to get tired of being the loser, and they get a little ticked off maybe, and it flips. Now they become the win-lose person. And they ever seen that? Ever seen a passive person flip, and all of a sudden now they get aggressive? That person that maybe takes a whole lot to get them upset, but once you do get them upset, boom, they flip. I've seen that before. And now all of a sudden, they're the one that wants to win. I'm tired of losing. I'm going to win now. And then they'll be the aggressor. And they're fine if you lose, if the other person loses, because it's my turn to win now. I've been losing for too long now. Now it's my turn. I'm going to win. And then they beat down the other person. But that person, it always comes back around. And then they feel bad about doing that. So then they go right back to the other way. And it's a cycle. You can go from one to another. Ever known anybody? Think about it. Think about people you've worked for or worked with. Have you ever seen anybody in that cycle?
I feel like I do that a lot.
Okay. We all can probably do that to some degree. And hopefully talking about this win-win will help that. So the idea is that we don't want to be a win-lose person all of the time. Only when it's necessary and only when it calls for it. Particularly you have to do the tough thing of firing somebody or whatever. Make the tough decision to, maybe the president makes a decision to go to war. That's not a win-win. But sometimes it's what you have to do in order to keep from having a lose-lose. That kind of thing. What I want isn't as important to me as my relationship with you. That's another reason a person could be a lose-win person. It's like sometimes it makes sense to lose. For instance, if Chris starts dogging me about the Minnesota Vikings, or Carrie, same thing, like they just did. I can choose, if I choose win-lose, and Carrie chooses win-lose, well, we could get into an argument. And if I refuse to lose, and I'm fine with him losing, in fact, I want him to lose, and Carrie thinks to himself, I'm going to win, and I'm okay if Joel loses, we get into an argument about football. Who wins?
Not the Vikings.
No one.
And no one wins. So sometimes it's better to embrace a lose-win situation. He can talk smack about my Vikings, and if I just say, okay, I'm going to lose this one, I don't care, and I just let him go on his smack talk and I ignore it, sometimes that's better than if I stand up and fight and then we just make it worse. Because if I ignore it and I just accept, okay, I'm going to lose this, I don't really care. Anybody been in a situation with a spouse or significant other where you just realize that, okay, this is not one of those arguments that I need to have.
It's not a hill to die.
I need to pick my battles.
You say
I
you're
need to
right.
pick my battles. Well, sometimes picking your battles is choosing a lose-win situation. It's like, okay, whatever you say, dear, right? You all know what I'm talking about now, right? But sometimes it's okay to lose-win. But when it comes to the workplace and when it comes to interactions, when people have to work together and get things done, that's not a healthy thing to do. It's typically not a healthy thing to do. It's not what we want to seek out normally. So, lose-lose situation. So when two win-lose people get together, and this is what I was talking about the scenario with Carrie, the results will be lose-lose. They will be aggressive towards each other as they both expect to win over the other. When you get two people like that, they just don't win. Ever seen that? Just an argument where people are just arguing and nobody's winning, and everyone surrounding is the victim. They get into something they don't even realize what. That's a lose-lose. Nobody wins. But the reason why it's a lose-lose is because you put two personalities that are trying to win together, right? And it's a toxic situation. When two lose-win people get together, the results will eventually be lose-lose. They will be passive towards each other as they both expect to lose. Okay? Ever seen anybody like go to open up the door for somebody? No, you go. No, you go. No, really, you go. No, you go first. No, I'll go first. It's a lose-lose. It's like nobody's making any decisions. Nobody's assertive. Nobody's taking action to get anything done. So sometimes that's a bad thing too. You get two lose-win people in the same room, and neither one expects to win. How's that good? How does that ever lead to anything good, right? See what I mean? So that's not healthy either. Lose is also the philosophy of the highly dependent person without inner direction who is miserable and thinks everyone else should be too. See anybody like that? Well, if I'm going to be miserable, then everyone else around me is going to be miserable too. That's a lose-lose situation. And unfortunately, people like to take other people down with them sometimes. And that's no fun. The win scenario. People with the win mentality don't necessarily want someone else to lose. That's irrelevant. What matters is that they get what they want. And I would say this is really common. There's a lot of people out there that don't really wish, have ill will towards other people. They don't really want other people to lose. Some people do. Some people really want revenge or justice, and so they want somebody else to lose. A person that's just thinking about winning, that's not what they're thinking about. They're just thinking about just them winning. They're not looking at you losing. A person with the win mentality thinks in terms of securing his own ends and leaving it up to others to secure theirs. Right? Hey, I'm going to do what I have to survive. You do whatever you need. I don't care, but I'm going to do what I need to do. That's a person that's just thinking about winning. But what's missing here? What's missing in this?
Care.
What's that?
Care.
Yeah, they're still just thinking about themselves, right? Maybe they're not being evil towards someone else or ill will, but
There's just no care at all.
they're not doing anything for someone else, and they're fine if the other person just goes away or falls or they're fine if they succeed, fail. They don't care. They're indifferent.
Self-focused.
Yeah, and that's actually really common. When we were talking about the win-lose, some of you might be thinking, gosh, that's kind of cold just to want other people to lose. But that happens all the time. Anytime somebody wants revenge, right, or jealousy or anything, you want someone else to lose. People for some reason, we like to see other people fail because it makes us look better. But the win, this is just, I don't care what other people think. I'm going to do what I need to do to win. And that's okay. That's a legitimate way to think. And sometimes that's best and that's normal. When I go to the grocery store and I am picking out my peanut butter and my bread and my Frito-Lays or whatever, I'm looking for the best bargains I can. I don't want to pay more than I need to. The guy in the aisle over next door to me that I don't even know about because he's in the next aisle, I don't care about him. I don't care if he wins or loses, if he spends more money or spends less money. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to buy what I need and get out of there. Nothing wrong with that, is there? So a win mentality is fine in a lot of circumstances. But what if it's a teammate that I work directly with and I have no care whether they succeed or lose? That's different. Now I'm affecting the whole team, and I'm affecting a relationship that I have with them. Hopefully I have a good relationship with them. The guy in the next aisle at the grocery store, though, I don't even have a relationship with him, so I don't need to worry about it. I'm not expected to. Make sense? So that's the difference there. All right, so this one, win-win or no deal. And I heard Carrie talk about this a little bit before we started a while ago here. I only want to go for win-win. I want to win, and I want you to win. I wouldn't want to get my way and have you not feel good about it. Okay? So basically, I want to win, but I want you to win as well. And the last thing I want is for me to win and you not to feel good about it. Now, why would that be a legitimate way to think?
Because you're caring about what happens to the other person.
And the future might have something to say about that, right? What if it's a customer? What if it's a customer? If you don't care whether that customer is taken care of, they may not come back. But if we do care, if we want this to be a win-win, hey, I get your money, you get a great pizza. right? If you care about that, well, then they'll come back. If you don't care about that, they won't come back. And then we will lose down the road for sure. When you have a no deal as an option in your mind, you feel liberated because you have no need to manipulate people to push your own agenda to drive for what you want. Here's what this means. So win-win or no deal means this. I'm going to enter into a transaction with you potentially. If I can win and you can win, then let's do this. If we can't both win, let's just scrap it and not do it at all. That's what this means, right? If no deal isn't an option, if we have to get something done, the chances of getting something win-win might be difficult. Somebody might have to compromise too much. So the idea of win-win or no deal is, hey, if this isn't a good deal for both of us, let's just not do it. We don't have to do this. It's like buying a car. You could always just say no thank you, I'm going to walk away and maybe I'll find a deal somewhere else. It's not like somebody's holding a gun to your head and saying, here you go, now work it out, figure out how much you're going to buy this car for, and then you got to figure it out and somebody's going to get screwed one way or the other. That's not what this is like. This is avoiding that. This is saying, hey, let's make sure this is a good fit or let's not do it. For me, where I run into this a lot is if I'm doing an interview with maybe a general manager. I might have somebody come into my office and interview with me, and maybe this person is overqualified. And I look at that person and I think, wow, okay, you've got a lot of restaurant experience. You've got good leadership experience. You're used to making X amount of money. I don't know that I can pay you near that much, but I'm quite certain you'd be good at running my store. But I don't know if I can meet their needs. I can't pay you enough. You're overqualified. You should be managing an Applebee's, not a Papa Murphy's. I don't know if I can meet their needs. I don't know that we can have a win-win. I think I might win temporarily because you're overqualified, but I don't think you're going to win because I don't think I can do for you what you need. You need to be challenged at a level that's higher, or at least at the level that you've been at in the past, and this is not that. So that maybe that's not a win-win. Or maybe somebody else comes in and they're underqualified. I want to be your general manager. Well, they would win if I gave them a job. They would win because they'd get a higher position and a higher pay for a while than what maybe they're worth. But I would lose because I would get a sub-level manager.
For the price of an eagle.
Exactly. And so I wouldn't win then. So the key is that you want to try to have a win-win. So for me, and for you guys too, when you hire people and you bring somebody on, you want to think win-win. What can I do for them and what can they do for me? If you're just thinking win-lose, if I could just get some bodies in here that'll do what I say, well, that's not going to work for very long. But what if you can bring somebody in and you can recognize what they need from you and you can provide it? What are some things that your employees need from you on a crew level? When crew people come and they apply at a pizza place or any place and they want to come on board, what are some things that they really, really need from you in order to win? What are some things?
Just basic customer service skills. That's one.
So they need to be taught skills. Okay, what else?
They need coaching.
They need coaching. They need to be shown respect. The affirmation that you talked about as well. They need to be paid attention to, given the tools that they need in order to be successful, being taught, being paid attention to. You know, they need that. They need encouragement. They need someone that's going to put their arm around them and say, hey, let me take you to another level. That's what they need in order for them to win. What we need for us to win is for them to be loyal, to be there, to do their job well, to have integrity, to have good character, show up when they're supposed to show up, give you a good amount of effort when they're there. And when both of those things happen, it's a win-win. But what if we don't do our part? What if when they come to work, instead of encouraging them or supporting them, we just tell them what to do? That makes us a win-lose person, right? And they're not going to come back. That's where a win-win, that's the only way a win-win can work. And for us, if we can't have that, if we have a person that's going to come on board and we can't provide for them what they're going to need from us, then it's better off just not to hire them. Don't do it if we can't provide that for them. Don't hire them. Don't hire it unless they can win and you can win. Make sense? sometimes after a while, an employee can go from a win-win person to a win-lose person too, right? After a little while, they lose interest in you winning as long as they can still win. Ever seen that? Well, sometimes people turn into a win-lose person because maybe we've turned into that first. Sometimes if we stop providing somebody else what they need, they'll stop providing what we need. And so it's us as the leaders to be first in that. We can't point a finger at them and say, you know, your performance is going downhill. Shame on you. It's up to us to meet their needs first so that their performance can stay there. We have to be the leaders. We're the ones that have to do it first, and they will follow. That's why we're the leaders, they're the followers. That's how that works. So it's important. All right, so here's a little chart that's kind of cool. Now in the past, a couple months ago, we talked about dependence, independence, and interdependence, okay? You guys all remember that? Dependence is when other people solve your problems for you. They take care of you. They might be the ones that are making decisions for you. So they win, you lose. It's a lose-win situation when you're a dependent. Like I mentioned before, when we're kids, our parents, they're the ones that win and we lose. That's the way we perceive it, because we're dependent. And it's the same way also when you're working in a restaurant or any job. If you are dependent, you have no leadership skills. All you can do is just follow directions. You're going to be the one that's just you're always going to be just doing what other people tell you, and that's a lose-win situation, right? Independence is different. This is when you figure out how to solve your own problems. You figure out how to take initiative and get things done and do things. And so after a little while, the idea is that I'm going to win. I'm independent. I can decide my own destiny, and my destiny is that I'm going to win. And a lot of times that'll turn into a win-lose. And when you become independent, it becomes about getting ahead of the other people. It's about stepping on somebody else's shoulders to get ahead. It's about competition. It's about, I'm going to get ahead of you even if you lose. And so independence can be that. It's a race.
I don't need you.
I don't need you. I can do this myself. I'm going to get there. It's that scarcity mentality. There's only so much out there, and I'm going to get mine first before you get a chance to get yours, right? So that's where that independence is, and that's a win-lose philosophy. And then also for both of these, the dependent and the independent, you can have a lose-lose situation too. Again, you put two dependents in one room and watch something get done. It doesn't happen. You all know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had two people put them on a closing shift and nobody's in charge? Watch what happens. Nothing happens. Or you take two independent, bossy people and put them together and watch what happens. It's usually not pretty. Maybe things will get done, but it gets done independently. And there's a lot of this going on, right? Because there's too much independence. But then this third level up that we're looking at, interdependence, this is where the win-win comes in. This is when the interdependent person decides, you know what? I certainly don't always have to win, but I'm going to try to win all the time, but I'm not going to do it without the other person winning. When the other person can win and I can win at the same time, and we work together to help each other win, this is where the magic takes place, right? When we get to that place where we graduate from independent thinking to the interdependent thinking, a win-win situation, this is where we start gaining our value. And a person's worth will hit a springboard and go way up, because a person that can bring a win-win attitude, especially in the form of leadership to a workplace, will truly be worth a lot more than somebody that can't.
And you guys remember, some of you that have been coming for a long time, remember when we went through this class about being assertive. And remember how much I talked about how important that was. That's the healthiest personality trait you can have, is being assertive. And so I'm going to take a second, some of you guys weren't here, to define that for you again. What does it mean to be assertive? Does anybody remember the definition of assertive?
Basically take action.
Well, that's all part of it. It is respecting your rights while at the same time respecting the rights of someone else.
Yep, this next slide is going to hit that exactly too. So that's good. And you're right, this is exactly, it is the assertiveness lesson again in a different form. Mm-hmm. So think about this. got a little teeter-totter at the top. This is a balance. If you think about a win-win scenario, it's always going to be a balance between two things, between confidence and consideration. Okay? It's always a balance between confidence and consideration. Confidence, maybe you could even substitute the word assertiveness into that as well. Confidence would be a person who is going to fight for their rights to be as valuable as the other person. It's like, I'm not going to let you step on me. I'm going to step up, and I'm not going to get ripped off by this deal. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to speak the truth. Consideration on the other side is I'm going to be considerate of the other person, though, too. I'm not going to get mine at your expense because I'm inconsiderate. I'm going to consider other people's needs just as valuable as my own needs. It's the golden rule, right? Consider others as you would consider yourself. It's the same thing. It's being considerate. So it's a balance. So when you have self-respect and you don't take the martyr role and you don't make yourself a scapegoat and you stand up for your own rights, but you also have consideration for other people, that is the only way you can really have a win-win situation. Now, let's look at the other scenarios here. So what if you do have confidence? Like, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get what I need. And so maybe there's high confidence, but over here there's low consideration. I don't really give a rip about other people. That's not a good combination. You may get what you want, but you're going to be lonely at the top because no one's going to be following you there, right? And so when we're very inconsiderate towards other people because we're confident in what we want, that's when other people, that's the win-lose, right? And then down below, if our confidence is low, we don't have the assertiveness to stand up and defend yourself or fight for what you could have, and you're just considerate towards other people. Oh yeah, but they should have that. They need it more than me. I'm all right. I'll just stay in my little corner. And it's all because we're considerate of the other people. That's not balanced either. See, the golden rule is really interesting. It says, basically the golden rule says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But it also is reversed. Make sure other people do for you what they would want you to do for them. It's the same thing. Your value is just as high as their value, and their value is just as high as your value. And that's how a win-win works. It's when we start thinking that other people are more valuable than us, that's when we fall into this lose-win. It's when we think we're more valuable than someone else, that's when we fall into the win-lose. Make sense? So the only thing that's going to work is to see the value in other people and have consideration for them, and see the value in ourselves too. Say, hey, I'm valuable. I matter just like you matter. So let's figure out something so that we can both win, because that's really what matters.
There's enough for both of us.
There is. There's enough for both of us if we work together. But we don't always see that, do we? In the workplace, you see a lot of junk going on. You see a lot of lose-win and win-lose, right? What do you guys think about this win-win idea? Does this seem too idealistic, or do we see this every day? What do you think?
I feel like we see it every day. Everything has its own costs in a sense. I mean, you do one thing at a cost for someone. You know what I mean? Or consequences, I guess you want to call it that.
Sometimes for someone else to win, it does cost you something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go out of your way to help someone. And so there is a cost to it. Yeah, it would be really easy if it didn't cost you anything. I'd be nice to everybody if it didn't cost me anything. Yeah. Right? But sometimes it does. Sometimes it's inconvenient. If I got to stop along the road and help somebody change a tire, it's like, yeah, that's being considerate of other people. But man, it's hard. It's hot out there. It's going to cost me something. I don't want to do that. Right? But if I think win-win, they're going to get something out of it. I'm going to get something out of it too, even though I don't think I'm going to. Sometimes we think a loss is a loss, and sometimes it's a win. Sometimes when we do things for other people, we actually get something more out of it than what we think. Anybody ever volunteered for something really massive like flood relief, or anybody done anything with sandbags, shovel sandbags? That's really, really hard work. I did that for 2 weeks back in 2008 when we had floods in Coralville. I did that for 2 weeks, and I did this with 2 flood teams, and we worked hard. We worked in the evenings, and then we worked on the weekends. We took a couple days off doing it, but we did it for hours. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. I'm with these people from my church, a couple different teams combined up for one property, and we worked our butts off, but nobody complained. I never heard anybody complain one time, even though we were working hard, we were giving, and we were sacrificing, and we were having fun doing it. But when we walked away from it, we felt great about it. Now, what if I would have been doing all that work for myself? Just working, trying to, put sandbags around my own house. I would not have felt that way because I wasn't doing something for someone else. Anybody mowed a grass for a neighbor? An old lady or something, or an older person that is, you go mow their grass and you feel good about it. Do you feel that good when you're mowing your own grass? No. So you gain something by giving. I never think to myself, gosh, I'm just volunteering my time to myself. This is awesome. I'm making a difference in me, right? We don't think that way, but we do. We get something out of giving. We always get something out of it. So it's a win-win, even though we don't think about it. We don't think it's a win-win, but it really is. So. All right, we've got a few minutes left, just for some discussion time. What do you guys think about this? Give me your impressions.
I'm a win-win guy. I really am. But I'm also a lose-win guy. I seek that win-win, but I lose a lot. Mine's time. And that's where I'm eating it now. I used to come in after hours and do shit that nobody knew I was doing. And then I go on vacation for a week and shit hit the fan. Because all that stuff I did that they didn't realize I was doing, now it wasn't getting done. People are getting pissed. And that's what I'm working on now. So for me, in my store where I'm at, is I'm there, but I'm not there. I'm there, but I'm only there for when shit hits the fan kind of deal, because they got to learn to do it themselves. You get what I mean? Because I'm kind of behind the scenes, so I can watch where they're missing, what they're doing, so I can teach them the things that I did. Because I used to come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, do a bunch of shit, leave, go to the gym, and come back, and they never realized what I was doing. It was just simple things like getting loaner cards ready, or even when I ran a Pizza Hut years and years and years ago. I used to go in and fold boxes, shit that did, and then when I wasn't there, and all of a sudden we're out of boxes. You guys get that aspect, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Doing those small things that we do as managers, that is really
may go unnoticed.
Yeah, and they don't realize, and then when you're not there to do it, that's where I'm struggling now, is all the things that I did when I'm not there to do it, it doesn't get done.
That's the kind of
So
thing.
I'm trying to teach them to.
Like peeing your pants in a dark suit. You get a warm feeling and nobody notices.
Right.
All right, on that note.
I always did it for the aspect of, it makes us all more money, it makes everybody's life, it was a win for them, because it made their day so much easier.
Right.
Now it's a lose for them, because when I'm not there, now their day sucks so bad, because they don't know how to do it, or it's not in their repertoire of the things they need to be doing on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to.
So how many of you guys think, how many would you say, or how many of you would say that you tend to be more of a win-lose person versus a lose-win person? Anybody think to that?
This depends on the situation.
In general, though, are you more times than not, are you a win-lose
Is
person?
your inclination.
Yeah. What's your natural inclination? You tend to be maybe more aggressive than you need to, or more passive than you need to. A passive would be a lose-win person that maybe sacrifices themselves for the sake of other people. Maybe it's out of fear, maybe it's out of lack of courage, whatever reason.
We're definitely passive. We're definitely passive.
Yeah.
Both of you guys would be more of a loss. Okay, all right. How about you guys back there, you girls? Where you guys fall? Win-lose or lose-win?
Lose-win. We were just talking about how passive I am, and somebody would probably stab me, and I'd say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry for what I did to your knife.
I'm so sorry that I'm bleeding. I'm making this inconvenience to you, but...
Okay.
I would say lose-win because I'd say, I'm highly considerate of other people, and I think I understand, too, in my work setting that hardly anything is ever black and white, and that there's, I don't know, but then I think in the process of doing that and being concerned for other people and what they would think and not wanting to hurt people's feelings sometimes.
Yep. Okay. So now we've identified where we're at. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with those ideas? How is that not ideal? If we look at win-win as being ideal, How is lose-win, or in Chris, in your case, win-lose maybe, like you said, where are you at, Devin?
I don't know, I feel like I usually go into things with like good intentions, but then they don't usually end up going as planned, so I don't know, probably win-lose.
Okay, so let's look at the lose-win. What's wrong with it? Is that where we need to be, lose-win?
No.
Okay, so how do we get to win-win? What changes could you make in yourself that could help you enter into more win-win situations instead of lose-win situations?
It kind of feels like both, though. Like, I don't feel like I'm losing, just because it's a lose-win situation, I don't feel like I'm losing all the time. I can handle more stuff than the people that are around me. So if they're fine, I feel like I won also because they're going to be okay. I know I'm okay. But now I know that they're going to be okay.
Okay, then that's not really a lose-win, that's a win-win.
But see, it's kind of both.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, yeah.
I get what you're saying, because now your plate's so full and theirs not.
Yeah.
You feel like you're losing because you got so much more crap you got to deal with. But they don't have to. I get what you're saying.
I can handle more stuff than other people.
So I do it.
Especially in our
But
school
should
and
you?
like that.
But should you?
Yeah.
Should I? No.
Okay, so that's where the lose-win comes in. When you're doing other people's crap, what are you not doing? You're not doing some of your own crap,
Yeah.
right? Maybe there's more important things you should be doing than the people that work for you, their job.
Feel it, like, if it's going that way, if you're doing other people's stuff, you're not holding them accountable.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
that's making them lose.
And you're not helping them, right?
Yeah.
Even though it seems like a win for them, you feel like you're doing them a favor because you're doing part of their work. You're really not, because they're not learning responsibility. It's like a helicopter mom that solves all of their child's problems. They think they're helping and protecting their child, but they're setting their child up for a miserable fall once they get old enough and they have to start taking care of themselves and they don't know how, right? It's the same thing with our employees. When we do more than what we need to for our employees. One of the questions that I ask a lot of people that interview with me, it's not a question, it's usually a response. I'll hear, during job interviews, I will hear people say, there's nothing that I would ever ask anyone else to do that I'm not willing to do myself. Anybody heard that? Anybody said that in a job interview? Anybody said that? Everybody says that, right? And so I'll usually respond by saying, well, what do you mean by that? Well, it means I'm not going to ask my employees to scrub the toilets if I'm not going to get in there and scrub the toilets too. Now, is there some truth to that? Sure. That's just, the intention is to be humble. It's like, hey, I'm not above any job. That's true. However, if you're scrubbing a lot of toilets when you're at my level, what am I not doing? If I'm scrubbing enough toilets, I'm not coaching my managers, right? If I'm scrubbing floors and doing dishes, I'm not training assistant managers. If you guys are scrubbing a lot of toilets, you're not training your assistant managers or your shift leaders, because you can't do both. You have to focus your attention towards what's most important, right? And so sometimes we think we're doing other people a favor by doing the lesser important things for them, but really what you're doing is you're neglecting the more important things that you should be doing. Make sense? So sometimes a win-win isn't really a win-win. We think of it as a win-win. I'm doing something for them, but you're not. Solving other people's problems does not help them. It doesn't help you. And this is one of the core pieces to leadership. And if the people that were here last time, remember, maybe we're talking about coaching. And one of the ideas of a coach is not to solve other people's problems, but to teach them how to solve their own problems, right? And so sometimes we do other people a favor, and we do ourselves a favor by saying, no, I'm not going to solve your problem for you. You can solve your own problem, but let me help you know how to do that. That's a win-win. Doing it for them is not a win-win, even if you think it seems like it, by helping them get ahead. That's not really a win-win. That's you sacrificing something and then them not having you to rely on if you go on vacation. Make sense?
I read an interesting, true story. A guy, I believe his name was Don Peterson. He wrote a book called 90 Minutes in Heaven. And this guy was literally killed in an automobile accident. He was driving a Ford Escort and a semi rolled across his car. And 6 inches of his femur were never found. Shot out of the car into the river. It was on a bridge. He was crushed. And Anyway, get to the long story, they had to regrow that bone. They put him in this really horrible device that they just moved it open just another millimeter every so many hours. They would stretch this, they put the bones together and then they stretch them apart a millimeter a few times a day. And let the bone trying to heal grow itself back out 6 inches. Took months and months and months. But we get to the point he was learning to walk again, and they put a titanium rod in his leg so that he could walk, till his bone got strong. And then one day they wanted to take that titanium rod out, and he's like, no, I'm not, no more surgery, I'm good. And they said, no, you don't understand. If we don't take that titanium rod out, your bone will never get strong enough to hold you up. The point is, you can find yourself being somebody else's titanium rod, and they will never get strong enough to do it by themselves. When you've got a new assistant, you're a fast pizza maker, you kick my butt, either one of you guys could, right? But I guarantee you that you didn't get that fast until you had to, until someone stepped back and just let you take the pain, and get it done. And so when you, like you said, if you are cleaning the toilet for somebody, then you're not doing what you can do to help them further their development. There's other things that you could be doing, and they're not going to get any better at what they're doing if you're doing it for them.
And don't get me wrong, too, about cleaning the toilets. I've cleaned a lot of toilets in my life. But the idea is that if that's the most valuable thing you can do, which at one time I was a janitor in a factory at Monsanto, and I cleaned a lot of toilets, and that's the greatest skill I had. I was really good at it, and that was the best. That's not my best skill anymore. Because I got better. Yeah. I can wipe off counters, and I can even wax cars. But the idea is that I became more valuable at other things, and so when I become more valuable at other things, I should spend my time doing those things more. And leadership is one of those things. The greater you get at your leadership skills, the more time you should spend doing leadership stuff. Makes sense? And that's what holds people back sometimes is we don't have time to do leadership stuff because we're helping other people with their non-leadership. Yeah, makes sense. And so sometimes you got to step back and say, no, I think you can do it. I'm going to be your cheerleader, but I'm not going to do it for you. And that's one of the things that can help us not get burnt out. You know how many owners of businesses there are that are working 80, 90 hours a week that don't necessarily have to? I mean, I've been there. I've been there too. Sometimes there's seasons you got to put in the time, and then it gets easier down the road, and because you're building something. But if it's continuous and it never changes, something is wrong. You're not. It's because if it's always like that, it's because in the past you didn't look for win-win relationships. You looked for lose-win relationships. And if you're always looking for lose-win relationships, I'm always going to do more than what I need to, hoping to get ahead. Well, you never get ahead then, because you're always doing stuff for everyone else, and no one else is rallying around you to support you because you're doing it all. Ever had that situation, a closing shift in your store, and you got a person that's a little slower, and say, I'll just do it myself. So you just do it yourself. Because I'm twice as fast, so I'm just going to get it done. And the other person really can just kind of slack off and do nothing, and you're just working your tail off. And some reason you think that that's okay.
And you get burned out.
You get burned out.
So many managers burn out doing that.
And the other person doesn't get any better.
Please tell somebody this one.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've walked into a store and there's 3 or 4 people working. One person's working really hard and the other 2 people are working at half speed. And the one working hard more times than not is the one that's in charge. It's like something's not working right here. There's no leadership. There's too much backwards thinking. So we need to be thinking about win-win. How everyone pulls their equal share, and everyone is looking to perpetuate the relationship. I'm going to scratch your back and you scratch my back. Let's meet in the middle. Let's make this work. Make sense? So there really is a balance. There really is a balance that we have to do, and it's so deceiving sometimes when you think you're helping somebody and but you're really not. It's easy. I've been there. We've all been there. So, all right, that's all I got, guys.